I was like, okay, I can't edit that out.
All right. Sweet.
Let's make it happen.
Hey, you know
Make it
what?
happen.
Happen. So
Jamming
what were you
on-
gonna say?
I was just
Jam in on the what? On the
just happy.
jam in on the small red one. I still don't know what that means.
What is
You
your?
haven't explained it.
Is that water? Or is that really tea?
Yeah. Citrus
In
tea.
his, it's in his pointer glass.
Yeah, it's in my pointer glass.
It's in his pointer glass. Oh, dude, that's a pointer mason jar. Heck yeah.
It used to have it when I bought it. It had grape jelly in it,
There you go.
so now it's a glass.
Mason jar. That would have been fantastic on the country episode.
Yeah, it would have.
Hey Ryan, were you gonna play something or what's going on?
For what?
You said.
Yeah, you were sharing your sound.
Yeah, I know. I might in a minute.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
see.
Okay. Well, whenever you're ready.
We'll see.
Whatever that guy just said, bullshit.
And it will not be my cousin Vinny. I think this will be fun.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do this.
So-
I'm ready.
All right, jam in.
20,
What are we on?
8.
28.
28.
28.
28. En la casa de
La
Gerf.
casa y biblioteca.
Biblioteca. Casa de.
Y papas fritas carne leche.
Papas fritas es bueno.
Papas fritas en la
Muy bueno.
escuela biblioteca carne asada.
Con horchata.
I'm just waiting for baño. That's all we need to round out all the words we know.
Agua y horchata y arroz con leche.
I still think
En el
it's funny.
baño.
I think it's funny. You were like, I learned that from the entrance of Grapevine Mills Mall.
Ustedes pasando.
Oh my gosh.
I
All right, let's
tried
get this
to
party
find-
started.
The other day, I tried to find that, and I couldn't find the sound bit of it. I wanted to find it so bad. The old school, like when you walk into Grapevine Mills, welcome to Neighborhood 1. You are now entering into the entrance of Neighborhood 1. And then, ustedes pasando. Yes. Oh my goodness, Grapevine Mills Mall.
Back in the day, baby.
Virgin
was
Records needs to go back into Grapevine Mills Mall.
Man.
Record stores, period, just need to come back.
Yeah, well,
Virgin Records.
yeah, we need the mega stores for sure.
Make it happen.
Okay, let's do this.
Jam
We
in.
need the mom and pop shops, is what we need.
Well, we have I have like 5 record stores here in town in Abilene. I mean, there's tons around. You just have to search for them.
The mom and
Ryan's
pop shops in Abilene are all the old people that are hoarding the records in their houses, and you just go
true.
in and steal that shit.
It's true.
Ryan's tried to jam on the one twice now.
Jam in on the one. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the UNT3, where we bring you all music all the time. We're 3 best friends. Anytime we get together, all we do is talk music, and we want to bring you into the conversation. I'm your host, Ryan Gerfers. I'm here with co-host Joel, our hero, Cox. And Mr. He's going to do it in one take, Christian Fisher. There will
Yay.
be no having to go and edit any of what he says because he's going to get it all done the first time.
False.
One of these days, we're gonna have to do a origin of the first take or the one take.
I tell you what, man, I mean, one take. We're going to get it done. So we're going to bring you a lot of good stuff today. I'm excited about the topics. Not going to divulge what they are. You're just going to have to stay tuned to find out what we're doing.
Ooh, teasers.
But before we do that, and these two guys have no idea I'm about to do this, and I did this walking up the stairs into the studio. It's really
Minutes.
It's my tortoise room in my office.
Minutes of preparation.
So, all 3 of us now have a theme song. And so what I'm going to do is I'm about to play you Joel's theme song, Christian's theme song, and my theme song.
Oh.
Okay, wait. Are you gonna play them and we have to guess whose is whose?
Oh no, trust me, you will know exactly whose is whose when I play them. Okay, you will know exactly.
Oh my God.
Whose is this man's, and this man.
Well, I think we all know who what his theme song is.
Dude, this is the best part of this. Now that we've all got our screens on the same page, we're all like, here.
Right here. Right down there.
So
This
what
guy.
we'll do, yeah, you don't have to guess. Everybody, it is what it is. But it's kind of like Star Wars. When like Vader walks in, he's got his own theme music.
Yeah, he does.
When Luke comes in, he's got his own theme. Rey has hers. So I just figured, you know what? Joel can run with this when he edits however he wants to.
Oh, geez.
Okay. But so song number 1, I'm not going to tell you whose it is. Y'all knows who as soon as I hit play, you're going to know whose this is. Okay. So let's make this happen.
Turn it down a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say. First off, that's a terrible song. Secondly, having it blared that loudly
Is awesome.
makes it worse.
Well, all right. I'll turn Christians down for when we do Christians.
And you can turn your mic up. I should have guessed that you were gonna stick me with that crappy song. Jeez.
So-
But like I said, we all know who
We
Joel.
all
What
knew
Joel's.
we all knew what was coming for Joel. We do. Okay. And I was thinking about this as well. We've had that challenge out for a while to get you to play with your shirt off,
It ain't working.
and it's not working. And if I were you, I'd be pissed off, man, because that just lets you know that our listeners
Don't
they don't
care.
find you sexy, dude.
Like that is
You've lost your sex appeal.
in this case. I'm totally okay losing my sex appeal.
Like there is no sex appeal here.
I'm glad that sexy back was not brought.
I have had a couple of listeners say they would like to sit down and drink a beer with us.
Oh, I'm totally
Well,
down.
come
with that.
on, what are we doing? Let's go. There's a brand new
That's it.
brewery.
We're done.
There's a brand new brewery right down the street. So I haven't been to it yet. I hear it's good though. All right, we're gonna move on to one take, and here's the thing. I don't know if this song was done in one take, but I'm really ready for this because y'all have no idea what's about to happen.
I don't actually.
Holy shit, this is gonna be good. Yes. Okay, here we go.
Do it, man.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm in love with Mary Jane. She's my main thing. She makes me feel.
Oh yeah.
She makes my heart sing. And when I'm feeling low,
It's so
she
fitting.
comes as no surprise. Turns me on with her love. Takes me to paradise. Do you love me, Mary
It's one of my favorite parts of the whole song right here. So good.
Oh man.
Yes.
I will take that every day and twice on Sunday.
Okay, all I know is this is a bunch of bull crap. He gets that cool song, and I get hero. Okay, first off, hey, can you turn up your mic, Gurfers, at all? Because you're kind of quiet.
Or just
No,
lean closer to it.
I don't have mic volume. I just,
You just talk.
I don't-
Okay, we'll just keep it close then. But
you had me turn the sound down.
Last time I did, but you didn't
Bruh.
have it up this time. Jeez. Okay, all I know is that's bull crap.
No, that's
All I'm gonna
great.
say.
No, that's not bullcrap. That's a good song.
It's a great song, but
I know. Yours is a good song too for you. Own it. You have
play your
to
song.
own
Play
it.
your damn song.
You have to own it.
You guys are both gonna have these really awesome songs, and I'm stuck with "Hero to Save Us."
No, see, I don't. No,
This is
I
the
don't-
greatest episode ever.
Two
I don't
guys
think
taking
my
a crap
song
on a
is that-
microphone.
I don't think my song is that great. In all honesty, I think Fisher's gonna have the coolest song.
course.
Well, I'm the coolest, so I mean
but here, so here's mine.
I disagree with this song.
I still think this whole thing is bullcrap.
That's right.
Bullcrap. By the way,
Hey, I'm the Mac Daddy, baby. What can
hey,
I
for
say?
those listeners listening on Spotify, we are so thankful that y'all listen on Spotify. But watching Gurfers sing Fisher's theme song is worth watching on YouTube at least once.
Yeah. Hey, stop sharing your sound, Ryan. I'll play your theme song.
All right, make it happen. Just like my song said, it's Return of the Mac, baby.
Yeah. Well,
That's right.
Okay,
It
let's
should
listen,
be-
Fisher.
it's more like you regulated your mic sound.
That's right. Bring it.
Yeah, see this is more Gurfers.
Regulators.
No way.
Regulate any stealing of his property. We're
Um,
damn good too.
Yeah, skip ahead to the.
Geek off the street.
Come on,
It's a
man.
clear black night, a clear white moon. Warren G was on the streets trying to consume some skirts.
This is your theme
So I
song.
Get some phones rolling in my ride, chilling all alone.
Just hit the east side of the LBC on a mission trying to find Mr. Warren G. Seen a car full of girls, ain't no need to tweak. All of you search know what's up with 213.
So I hooked select on 2-1 and Lewis. Some brothers shooting dice, so I said, let's do this. I jumped out the ride and said, what's up? Some brothers pulled some gas, so I said, I'm stuck.
Okay, we get it. You guys are awesome, and I'm obviously not.
Straight hit the curve. On to bigger, better things than some horny tricks. I see my homie and some suckers all in his mix.
I'm getting jacked.
All in his mix.
Myself. I can't believe they taking Warren's wealth. They took my rings. They took my
Rolex. Okay.
That's your
Damn,
theme
what's
song, Gurfers.
next?
Okay.
That's your
I'll
theme
take it,
song,
man.
Gurfers.
Hey, come on, Nickelback, don't be upset.
All I know is this is bull crap. I think what we should do is later on. I think later on this should be a segment where we each get to pick what the other one's theme song is.
That's
No.
fine. And me and Christian get to pick yours, and we've already picked it.
Okay. Let's just go on to the actual stuff that Matt.
Dude, what are you talking about? That was fantastic. Look, you have got to own your song.
So first off, let's just review this real quick. So first off, one, no one wants to see me shirtless with pasty singing Hero. Two, my theme song is now officially Hero. What's the trifecta? What? I mean,
I don't know. Stay
I get
tuned for a
replaced
future
by
episode,
Anna.
and we'll find out.
I mean, I get.
Well, you
replaced-
should be happy about number one.
Well,
no
I
one
am
wants to see it.
I am happy, but still, it's kind of. Anyway, let's just.
Watch after this episode. We're just gonna get a flood of comments.
Everybody's going to be like, no, his sex appeal is great.
No, you know what's going to happen is this is what's going to happen in 5 years. We're going to be several years and episodes in, and then people are going to see that first episode and it's going to blow up. We're going to have thousands of people, and then I'm going to be out of shape because my knees are blown. And
He's
I
going
can't-
to be in 5 years. Then he'll be 65.
Well, the
Be-
first-
he'll be collecting Social Security.
First off, the first episode that the challenge was thrown down, those comments had to be done within a week. So
Yeah, but you wait. It's going to
technically,
blow up.
the challenge has been way over.
Oh
But
no,
I
there's
have a
no
feeling
there's no rules.
if the masses come out, I'm going to be stuck literally with pasties singing Hero in front of all of y'all. So
That'd be maybe that's what we can use to get viewers for our live stream. Hey, you tune into the live stream, you can see Joel sing Hero.
That's right.
anyway.
Naked.
Well,
With the
I like
guitar
how with
covering
Gurfers,
up.
It keeps going on and on. Next thing
You'll
you
just
know,
you'll just be like the naked cowboy that played in Times Square or whatever, except you'll be in your room in Abilene, Texas.
dude, that guy makes 6 figures a year.
Yeah, well, just think if you would take your freaking clothes off and play Hero, you could make 6 figures also.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on.
Naked Abilene guy.
Naked cowboy.
That's right. No, but you would be called Naked Hero.
Oh,
Nice.
You would be Naked Hero. And then I could see like
We're 30 minutes in and nothing.
that's okay,
We
man.
haven't talked about Jack.
I could totally see like big time news like covering, hey, there's a naked hero in Abilene, Texas who stands out on the corner, It's coming, dude.
Yeah. Okay.
Own it.
Well, we used to have a guy called Hot Pants who used to walk up and down the highway. So anyway.
I don't even want to know.
Okay. Good.
But hey, so what? Let's just dive right in, okay? So, Hero's pissed. It's okay. I mean, Mary Jane's gonna go light it up here in a minute, and I'm about to have to roll out of here to go like pop a cap in some people, so it's all good.
Okay.
But hey, so here's what we're gonna do. Let's talk about, and really, y'all are gonna have to kind of drive this one because y'all are way more versed in this topic than I am. And really what we're discussing is what are the best music documentaries that are out there. I know I've watched a couple with you guys, like y'all showed me the Rush documentary.
Oh, great.
And then I don't know that maybe y'all were here. What's it called? Who is Pink or Who Was Pink for
That's a
Pink
good one.
Floyd?
Yeah, we watched
And
that.
so-
Who is
together.
Pink?
Those are the two most recent that I've
Which
watched.
one is Pink?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, really, as of right now, that's my extent of those just because I don't really watch them. So, I mean, y'all take it away, really, as to what the best music documentaries are.
Well, who you throwing it to first? Me or him?
Whoever wants it, y'all fight over it.
Why don't you go first, Joel?
Okay. I'll go first. By the way, you mentioned two good ones. They're not on my list, but I made some notes here. When I first started doing this, one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted it to be just about the band. It can have music, but I didn't want it to be like, like Led Zeppelin's, live concert where it had videos in it, and it, or like some of the other ones where it has like actual concert footage, and then they'll just they'll like place like different like documentary type.
So you didn't want like Song Remains the Same.
Song remains the same, or like there's the Corn Live, some of these other ones that are really good.
Or like the Last Waltz.
Yeah, the last waltz is a perfect example because that's one of the best documentaries, but it's more of a concert than it is actual like documentary.
Well, it's their last concert.
Yeah.
What band is that?
The band.
The band.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
Check that out if
yeah,
you haven't seen it. It's amazing.
Basically, the band was a group of guys that supported Bob Dylan when he first went electric. And then after he split from them, they just were like, hey, we're doing so great. Let's just form our own group. And they released only 4 albums, but they are just ridiculous albums.
Well, and even Bob Dylan himself was like, you guys are too good to be my backing band. You need to do your own thing.
Yeah. So it's good stuff. But that was my criteria. So here's some of the documentaries that I chose. I didn't realize how many documentaries I've watched over the years. So I actually had to kind of limit it. There's a lot of these that I really love. But my first one is Amy, about Amy Winehouse. It's a fascinating documentary. If y'all don't know much about Amy Winehouse, she released 2 albums. She ended up winning a Grammy for Best New Artist and Best Album of the Year for Back to Black. And just phenomenal singer. All these artists loved her, but she had a major drug addiction and she ended up dying from it. The documentary is beautiful, and seeing her work with like Tony Bennett, which I think, Ryan, you would absolutely love to see that part because I know you love Tony Bennett.
Oh, yeah.
But they show her working in the studio with him, and he was like, she was an old soul. Like she wasn't this pop artist. She was different. Plus, she was a phenomenal guitar player. I don't know if you knew this, but she could really play guitar. So
yeah. Well, and speaking of the actual documentary, Metallica's lead singer James Hetfield saw the documentary, and that whole song "Moth into Flame" off their most recent album is basically he watched that documentary, wrote the song.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
That documentary influenced that song.
Wow. And that's a great song too. So
yeah, it is.
But go check that out, Amy Winehouse. It's just called Amy. Another movie or documentary that I absolutely love is called 20 Feet from Stardom. And it's basically about all of these backup singers that support like Sting and all these famous artists, and they never, like, you don't know who they are. Like, they never make it past being a backup singer, but they're just phenomenal. And it just shows the struggle of them trying to overcome like the paycheck with like playing with these famous artists or trying to break it out on their own. There is live footage there, but it's more of a documentary on the struggle. So it's really good. Fisher, have you seen that one?
I have not.
Okay, you probably dig it. You too, Gurfers, because it's all about vocals. This one I think is probably on Fisher's list. I left one out on purpose because I think Fisher has it on his list, but this is another one. Back and Forth, the Foo Fighters documentary of not their most recent album, but the album before.
The one that came with Wasting Light?
Yeah, exactly.
Nope, I did not put that on there.
So I have a feeling there's another one by Dave Grohl that might be on your list, but
might be too.
Might be too. But that's a great documentary. It's just watching them in the studio, and it's the first time that Dave Grohl and Chris Novoselic got together with Pat Smear, who wasn't an original member, but he was with Nirvana. And then the original.
Well, what I like, Butch Vig. What I like about that documentary is it goes through the history of the Foo Fighters, right, up to present day. Well, at that point, present day. So, it's sitting on my shelf with all the other music Blu-rays that I have.
Yeah, it's a great documentary, and the thing I love about it is Dave Grohl has been such a champion for Nirvana, but a quiet champion. But he's never really talked about until recently how that affected him. And seeing him go out as Foo Fighters on that first album and taking that chance. I mean, think about it. You're following one of the greatest songwriters in some of people's opinion, and I think he's one of the greatest. And then you're going out on your own, not only as a drummer, but now you're the singer and songwriter. I mean, it was a huge, chance, and it turned out really good. So that's one that I recommend. Another one, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? It's the documentary on the history of the Bee Gees. I cannot tell you how much I love this documentary. It is so good, and it shows, because when I think of Bee Gees, I think of Saturday Night Fever. I'm sorry, that's kind of what I think of. But they pioneered tape looping in the studio, and they pioneered songwriting. The falsettos that they sang in were kind of, it was out of the box. Like, no one was doing that at that time. That's not actually how they sound. Their voices are lower. And so it's a fascinating documentary. Plus, there's only one surviving member left, and hearing him lament over the loss of his, 3 other brothers. They cover all the Gibb brothers. It's a really endearing story. Plus, I mean, they were great songwriters.
Yeah.
Seriously. So
they were really good songwriters.
Yeah. So, okay, I got 4 more. One Day in Harlem. This is a PBS special that's kind of hard to find, but it's basically this photographer had a great idea to bring all of the greatest jazz musicians of that time, Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, Coltrane, like all the Billie Holiday, like all of these famous jazz people. There's like 50 or 60 of them. And he basically wrote out to them and just said, will you show up at this one day? We'll take an hour. We're just going to photograph, whatever you want to wear. And it's the story of how they got this together. And it is an incredible photo. You can actually, if you type in One Day at Harlem, you can actually see the photo, and I'll put a screenshot of it. But it is the story of how this happened. Now we have email, we have cell phones. To pull something like this off and have it come out the way it did is so amazing. And the story is just so endearing to me. I just absolutely love it. So One Day in Harlem. Y'all are going to make fun of me, and I don't care, and y'all can do it. But
we do it anyway.
Yeah, y'all do. Chasing Happiness and Happiness Continues, the Jonas Brothers documentary of their most recent concert, is phenomenal. And dude, I'm serious. You watch the first one, and I guarantee you, when you see them in a room where they're taking shots and basically pulling, they have a scene where they're pulling these questions out of a bowl, and they have to answer it is one of the most painful and excruciating scenes I've ever seen, because they hated each other at one point. Like, they didn't want to be around each other at all. And to see that they overcame that with fame and whatnot, it's just a really great story. Take the music out of it, but it's a really great documentary. This may be on Fisher's list, but I love this one. Hired Gun. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen it. It's really good.
It is so great. It's a story of all of these side guys. It's led by Jason Hook. He's the producer and the director.
When you mean side guys, just like guitar players for hire.
Yeah, drummers, bass players, like all these people that are for hire. And it shows the pitfalls of that lifestyle. Jason Hook started off as he was a hired gun for Mandy Moore. And then after she went to acting, he was like, what do I do? Well, he ended up getting other gigs and then ended up doing country. And now he's in Five Finger Death Punch. A great band. If you don't know them, they're very heavy, but he's a great guy. But it shows the drummer from Billy Joel, the guitar player from Billy Joel, some people from Ozzy Osbourne. It's just a great cast, and it shows the music industry and kind of like, the guy from Filter, the lead singer for Filter, it shows him talking about how Trent Reznor didn't pay him anything and said, hey, if you want to make money, create your own music. So he ended up leaving Nine Inch Nails and starting Filter. But it's just a great documentary, and it's really cool because at the end they all jam, and it's pretty neat. The last one that I have on my list.
Good Lord.
I know this is, but dude, I love this. I could have gone all night. This is, if you want a great story, the documentary is called The Other F Word. And it's basically all of these punk dads, whether they're singers or, Flea's in it, the lead singer for NoFX, the guitar player for NoFX, all these guys are in it. And it shows what it is, like how they grew up and how it is to be a dad in a punk band. And these are some pretty hardcore punk bands. If y'all seen NoFX, US Bombs are on there, Flea is in there. And it basically shows the kind of struggles of being in these bands and still being a good dad, because most of them grew up with terrible parents, and then they feel that tug of wanting to be a good parent, but yet they're on the road all the time. It is a heartfelt documentary, plus it's got great interviews. So if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. So Fisher, why don't you share your list? What do you got going on?
All right, well, 2 years later. No, I'm kidding, because my list is pretty much just as long. Mine's shocker. Mine's going to tend to be more on the rock side of things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pair these two together because it's about the same band. And I'm going to lead off with my favorite band and the documentary Some Kind of Monster and A Year and a Half in the Life. The funny thing is, Some Kind of Monster was supposed to be a Year and a Half in the Life part 2, where it was just to show the recording of their latest album, which A Year and a Half in the Life, if you haven't seen it, the documentary follows Metallica from the recording of the Black Album to like right up to like to the end of their first run of the Black Album tour, because they did like 360 something shows for that tour, like 3 years of touring. So I put those two, and then Some Kind of Monster was supposed to be, pardon me, that part 2, and then James Goes to Rehab, and it shows the decline of the band and basically the rebirth of the band. And what I really like,
is that the one that we watched at my house?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And you had a lot of their peers, the guys that they grew up with, were like, that's weak, I would have never done that. But a bunch of bands that looked up to them were like, I'm so glad you put that out, because we've struggled with that, And so James himself takes a lot of pride in that documentary, and is like, if it helps other bands navigate the same kind of stuff that we did, then great. So check those two out. They're really good.
They're really good.
My next one, this is part 2 in a 3-part series, because it follows the metal community. And Joel, do you know what it is?
Yeah, the Western civilization
The
documentary.
decline of Western civilization, part 2. And oh God, I wish I could remember her name, but the lady who produced, filmed, directed this documentary, all she does is she interviews a bunch of the 80s metal / hair metal bands. And I think the scene that sticks out the most in that documentary is the Chris Holmes scene.
Yeah.
The guitar player for was it Wasp?
Yeah.
Guitar player for Wasp. He's sitting in a pool float in his pool in his leather pants and like a vest, like a leather vest, drinking straight from the bottle. Sorry. Drinking vodka straight from the bottle with his mom sitting there during the interview. And the guy is like, you watch him fall off the float into the pool, right? Just passes out drunk.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a pretty ugly scene because while there's the other scene where he's talking about, you know, how terrible his life is and all the stuff he's doing, the bad stuff. And they basically pan into his mom, like a close up of his mom's face. And it's like, it's one of the most painful things to watch.
Yeah, it's you know, she interviews Ozzy Osbourne, Gene Simmons, Blackie Lawless from Wasp. You know, she interviews a bunch of people, and it just shows the seedy side of basically the LA scene in the 1980s.
Yeah. It's definitely, of the 3 documentaries, it's definitely the best one. The other 2,
it's the most popular one. I think the third one covers the punk scene.
Yeah,
and it's actually pretty good too. I've watched it. You don't have as many big names as you do in part 2, but part 2 that's what people were listening to at that time, right?
Yeah.
That's what was big in the music scene. So,
and it covers more the band side, whereas the first one and the third one covers, like, the bands are there, but it's more about the street scene with the kids, the street kids.
right.
And how the music is supported by these street kids that beg all the time. I don't know if y'all know this, but Pat Smear from Foo Fighters is actually a kid in the first one. They interview him. He introduces who he is, and it's pretty interesting. But it's good. The second one's definitely the best one.
So every time you say that, are you saying Pat Smear?
Yep.
Pat Smear.
Because every time I hear you say that, I'm hearing Pap Schmear.
I know.
And I'm like,
well,
what?
I think it's probably on purpose, but it's Pat Smear.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, well, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
all right. So, if I may be allowed to continue, my next documentary is a Dave Grohl production. It's the documentary Sound City.
Yes.
And I could have gone Sonic Highways. As a matter of fact, it was on my list, but I decided to take it off and replace it with the decline of Western civilization. But Sound City documents the rise and fall of the famous studio in LA, Sound City. And it culminates with Dave Grohl buying the Neve recording board that was in Sound City. That's a very popular board. A lot of really great records were recorded on that board. And so he decided to buy it, put it in his home studio, and he just invites all of these different artists to come and record and jam. Yeah. And the album or the soundtrack that they put out for it is actually really, really good.
Yeah. It's a great documentary. And we're talking, if you like albums from the 70s, 80s, 90s, they were some of the best albums were recorded on that console.
Yep. My next documentary this is one of my personal favorites because ultimately it's a documentary about a certain band, but at the very beginning it's really a documentary of a certain scene. And it's PJ-20, the Pearl Jam documentary, where it starts out talking about Andy Wood and Mother Love Bone and just the Seattle scene itself And then after Andy passes away and Stone Gossard and Jeff Ament, the guitar player and bass player of Pearl Jam, who were in Mother Love Bone, they get together with Mike McCready, and then they put out a demo tape and send it out. And then that's how Eddie gets the demo tape from Jack Irons and listens to it, puts his own stuff to it, and boom, Pearl Jam is born.
Yep.
And it's called Pearl Jam 20 because it was put out on the 20th anniversary of Pearl Jam's being a band.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could consider this a documentary, but we can't have this discussion without Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap.
That's actually a mockumentary, but
Yeah.
I'll let it
But
go.
you cannot have this list without that on it, right?
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
it takes the piss out of every cliche in the book, in the metal scene. I mean, goes to 11, the Stonehenge,
Yeah.
right? The writing in minor chords because it's the saddest of all chords.
D minor is the saddest of all keys.
And or how they're hello Cleveland, and they get lost in the backstage. And what's funny is if you watch the Metal Evolution documentary, bands talk about how like that specific scene, the getting lost backstage, how close that hits home. Like they're like, you have no idea. So
Yeah.
This is Spinal Tap.
Yeah,
Three more.
That's a great pick, though.
Three more. This one takes three guitar players that I would have never thought put together, put in a room, and just talk about how they come up with their own guitar sound, the recording process, what inspired them to write their biggest hits, and it's called It Might Get Loud.
Yeah.
And that's with Jack White,
Jack White.
The Edge, and Jimmy Page.
Yeah, Jimmy Page.
Right? And they just talk about, I love how that documentary starts out with Jack White building his own guitar. Mm-hmm. Right? And how he talks about music can come from everywhere. You don't need a fancy guitar. You can he makes it out of a metal wire, some nail, a board, and a Coke can. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to talk about to hear Jimmy Page talk about how he came up with Kashmir, or how the Edge comes up with his tone and the sounds that he uses.
Yeah. That's a great one. That's a great one, by the way. I should have named that one. And I'll say this, if you can watch it with the outtakes are just as good.
I would say if you're a guitar player, you should probably watch that documentary.
Yeah. Watching Jimmy Page be taught by the Edge is one of the most uncomfortable and awesome moments I think I've ever seen. It's so great.
And so going from if you're a guitar player, you should watch that documentary too. If you're a bass player, you should watch this documentary, and it's called Jaco.
Oh.
And it's the documentary of Jaco Pastorius.
Yes.
It was spearheaded by the bass player from Metallica, Rob Trujillo. He funded it, put it together, was in charge. He was the one who brought Flea into it and all these other bass players.
Yeah. But you know why, right?
I don't know why he did it. I know he loves Jaco.
He did it because he bought Jaco's bass. And the whole thing was if I remember correctly, at the end, he has people play Jaco's bass. And that was the whole thing, is he bought the bass and restored it and then got the inspiration to make the documentary. So that's a great one.
Jacques, you watch that documentary and listen to the things and watch the things that Jaco does on the bass. And it's hard not to sit there and go, he's the greatest bass player to ever live, or at least the most inventive.
Yeah, self-taught.
And so my final one, if you love bass and you love guitar and you especially love drums, you need to watch the documentary Beyond the Lighted Stage, the Rush documentary. And, I love how I just love how the band let Sam, the guy who made the documentary, he's the guy who does Banger TV. He did the Metal Evolution and all of those things, but he did this one, Beyond the Lighted Stage, and just the access that he got, talking about, Alex and Getty talking about how they met in school and, where their first gig started, bringing in Neil to the band after, I can't think of the other guy's name, the first drummer after he left. I don't know. It's just, I remember before I watched that documentary, I really didn't have a big appreciation for Rush. Rush was a band that I listened to as a kid, and they came and went. But after watching that documentary, I'm a huge Rush fan. I love Rush. So that's my final documentary on that list. So there you go.
Yeah. What a
Nice.
blessing. What a blessing.
Well, I am not coming at y'all with a list today because my list they already went through. Every single one of the things that I had written down, they already mentioned, and so we're just not going to beat a dead horse here.
So of all of the ones that maybe you wrote down or the ones that we talked about, which one, if you were to go downstairs right now and say, I'm going to watch one, which one would you pick?
I don't know. I'd probably this may shock both of you when I answer it this way, but the Amy Winehouse documentary that Joel, there was just something about her vocally that I really liked. And I was
Beautiful.
not an Amy Winehouse fan at all. I would not go seek out her music, but if I heard a song come on, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to listen to this. So I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
just to go check that out.
I'm pretty much a sucker for a music documentary. I mean, there's so many more that I could have listed, but I've only seen once or twice and really haven't taken a deep dive into them. But if you tell me, hey, we're going to watch a documentary on a band, I'm in. I'm fascinated by the how a band works together to come up with their music, the decisions they have to make when they're on tour, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And speaking of, to last week's episode when I mentioned Brian Johnson's YouTube channel, the lead singer from AC/DC, the show that he does is called A Life on the Road. And it's basically like mini documentaries with different people. Dave Grohl, Sting, Lars, Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. I mean, so I'm a sucker for documentaries, especially music ones.
Yeah.
So here's a follow-up question,
Okay.
right? And we don't have to go into big like huge depth here. This can be a very quick answer from both of you. But the question is, does a documentary, will it hit home for you harder, or I guess that's how I want to put it, if the artist or band is deceased and no longer with us, or does a documentary hit harder for you if the band is still around making music?
Either way.
Yeah. I mean, when I watched the Rush one, Neil was still alive, but it has a different tone to it, even though I was completely moved by it the first time I watched it. But now that I know that he's passed away, I'm thinking he was such a private person. The fact that we have that type of in-depth
Right.
documentary on that is such a blessing to someone like me. I will never play drums like Neil. I mean, I can keep a beat.
Nobody does.
But watching him and then him explaining it and just understanding that where he came from was not really a musical place. It was more of a intellectual, heady space. And that's what affected his drumming style. It's such a blessing. So I think for me, the Amy Winehouse one did pull at the heartstrings because it was post, her passing. And you see all these people that she worked with and you think, man, she only recorded 2 albums. Or like Jeff Buckley, if they ever do a documentary on that, it's like, what could have been if she just would have stayed clean? What could have been if she would have made some different decisions? But, for me, it doesn't really matter. I think I just have a different tone after they do pass.
Yeah. It maybe hits harder if I have a personal liking of the band, meaning, you know, like the Which One Is Pink. Like, I can watch that documentary anytime I want, right? Even though I've probably seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
Right? I love Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd to me is top 10 all-time band in my opinion. So, you know, or it could just be, you know, like the Jaco documentary. I knew who he was, right? I knew he was a bass player. I knew he was a musician. I didn't know how influential. I didn't know how special of a player he was until I watched that documentary. And when I'm able to find stuff out that I don't know about a particular artist or a particular band, that's when it kind of hits more for me than, say, like Some Kind of Monster, or I mean, even though Some Kind of Monster I actually saw in the theater, right? Or A Year and a Half in the Life. I love. That's where Doing It in One Take comes from. But, you know, if I learn something new about the artist or the band, that's when it really hits and strikes a chord with me.
Sure. I got you. Well, so this is actually a good conversation to go right into the next topic that we've got, because really what I'm going to throw at y'all now is, should a band continue if a major member or a founding member or most of the members are no longer with us? They pass away or they leave and they go do something else. I'll throw an example out. Dave Matthews Band. Let's say Dave Matthews were to die tonight. Should that band continue as Dave Matthews Band? And I know that's hard to do because the band name is after, you know, Dave Matthews, but it's like, could somebody fill his shoes and they still go play Dave Matthews concerts, or should they? And so that's kind of where we're at here. Should bands continue if a major member or multiple members are gone? So, Fisher, jump in on that.
So we're talking about original members of the band. And the first thing that pops to my mind is like the Black Crowes. After they disbanded in 2014, 2015, I think it was 2015. So after 5 years of being away and not being a band, the brothers Robinson, Chris and Rich, decided to get back together as the Black Crowes. And the first thing they both agreed on was, we're not going to have anybody from the old days come be a part of the band. So, do the brother Robinson make the Black Crowes, or the original members of the Black Crowes? Are they, you know, so should they continue on? And I don't know. I'm kind of mixed, because you can make the argument for Alice in Chains. The only two original members of that band are the guitar player Jerry Cantrell and the drummer Sean Kinney, right? Mike Inez, he came in after Mike Starr left the band, and then the lead singer, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. That was the lead singer, but their current lead singer.
New one.
Oh, the new guy, yeah.
Their current guy, you know. So you've got that's kind of more towards the Dave Matthews, like your front man, the guy who is the face of the band, has died, and so is it really still Alice in Chains?
Well, you could throw Journey into that mix also.
You could throw Journey. You could throw Judas Priest at one point. You know, you could put Iron Maiden in there at one point. How many guitar players has that band had? How many drummers?
Even drummers and singers. I mean, they went through several people. So
right, and so, but really the question is should they continue? And I was thinking about this on the way home from work today. And if I'm just a casual fan, not really knowing anything about the history of the band, or, you know, I haven't been following them for so long, I don't think I really care. I don't really think I'm going to notice the difference, right? I don't think I'm going to know, oh, that's not the original guitar player or the original drummer. But if I've been a fan for a long time, especially from the beginning, and let's take the Black Crowes again, and just Chris and Rich, the brothers, the lead singer and the guitar player, I mean, they're the main songwriters in the band, so you can make the argument that they are the band. They are the Black Crowes. And they just have hired musicians behind them to play the other parts. Mm-hmm. But for me, having Steve Gorman back there on the drums for the Black Crowes, the guy who was on all of their great albums, like, there's just a certain feel you get with certain players that bring the life of the band out. And once you start removing original members and putting in people that, I can play the part, but can you play the part with the same feel and with the same, the same chemistry? Like, being able to, the guitar player didn't even have to look over at the drummer to go, okay, we're going to end the song. We've just played it so many times together that we just kind of feel it and know, okay, it's going to end now, or we're going to transition to this next part now, right? You don't get that. Not saying that chemistry can't be formed with new members, but I think not having original members, and especially if the band has gone on so long that every original member is not there, and now it's just that band in name, I think it just takes away from something. It takes a little bit.
Couldn't that example there, couldn't somebody make an argument that example you just gave, all the original members are gone, but it's still carrying on? Couldn't you make the argument that that's just a tribute band at that point?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could. I mean, it's just...
that's a valid point at that point,
Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting is the way that I kind of looked at this question is, you have a situation like Queensryche. The band gets upset with each other. They part ways with Jeff Tate. And so you have Queensryche and then the Queensryche Mind Crime or whatever it is that they form. Like, they form these two separate bands. And so they hire this other singer, to sing for the rest of the band that has not all original, but pretty much mainly the original members, or most of them. And then you have the lead singer who's on his own with backing guys. And it's kind of like, for me, that's more of I wish they would just get it together and just hash it out.
Kind of like Pink Floyd.
Yeah, it's kind of, for me, it's more of a nostalgic kind of thing. But then you have something like what Fisher said. Like, the first thing I thought of was Bon Jovi. Right now, Richie Sambora, he's no longer in the band. He left the band. They have a great guitar player who's now the lead guitar player. Phenomenal musician. It's just not the same. I'm sorry. Like, seeing Richie Sambora up there singing with John Bon Jovi and playing the hits, it's just different. And, I do think that sometimes, like, I will never hinder a band from trying to continue, like, to bring the music. Cause, like, there's some old bands where people are just dying in the bands, but they're still touring and stuff. And it's like, okay, that's great. But, they're trying to make their money while they can and at least keep their name up. But the other thing that I was thinking of is like a band like Yes. When I came into Yes originally, it was not Steve Howe in the band. It was the other guitar player, Trevor Rabin, who came in. And I came in on that 90210, or some other, it's like a name with
the one with the Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Owner of a Lonely Heart, yeah, and all this. So that's what I came into. So
yeah, me too.
When I saw them live, I didn't know, I hadn't done a deep dive on Yes songs or the Yes album or any of that stuff. So I was loving it. So for someone like me, I was so happy that was Yes. That was. So I think you have to kind of do it a case by case basis. Whitesnake, they've had a million guitar players and drummers and everything else, but David Coverdale is the singer.
Right.
So,
well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, with Yes, right? Like if I'm just a casual member or I'm coming in at a certain point and I haven't been there since the beginning, then yeah, go ahead, keep touring because I don't know any better. But if I'm one of those people who have been with the band since day one or album one, and take Genesis for example. When, what's his name? Peter Gabriel. When Peter Gabriel left Genesis and Phil Collins moved from behind the drum set to be the lead singer, like, were they still Genesis at that point?
Yeah. To
Right?
me, they were, because I didn't know about Peter Gabriel.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. And so, and then eventually Phil Collins goes on to do his own thing, and the two remaining members of Genesis continue to put music out as Genesis, but was it really Genesis at that point?
Yeah.
And should they have continued with the name Genesis or taken on a new name and done something? Maybe keep putting out the same music, but just under a different moniker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we go back to like Pink Floyd, David Gilmour and Richard Wright and what's the drummer's name? Can't think of his name, but they keep going on as Pink Floyd. And why am I blanking on the bass player's name?
Roger Waters.
There you go. Thank you. Roger Waters, he goes off. He continues to play Pink Floyd music but he doesn't play it under Pink Floyd. He plays it under Roger Waters. And they had that whole lawsuit of Roger Waters saying, I'm not in the band, so therefore Pink Floyd is no longer a band. Y'all need to have a different name. And then if you watch that, Which One Is Pink documentary, at the end, he finally realizes, like, at least to him, he's like, of course they should continue as Pink Floyd because they're 3 out of the 4 members of the band. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it really depends on whose perspective you're coming from. But as a fan, if the guys that, especially if it's a band that I've been following for a really long time and they keep going and the drummer leaves or the drummer dies or the bass player leaves or, the lead singer goes and somebody else comes in and takes their place, I'm really not going to be that like, oh, they're coming to town. Yeah, so what? Mm-hmm. Like, it'd be like the Beatles coming to town without Paul and John, right? You still have George and Ringo, but 2 other guys. Like, they're not the Beatles. They may have the name the Beatles, but really, when you go to see the Beatles, you go to see John and Paul.
Yeah.
So before he passed away, would Van Halen fit into this conversation when they changed their frontman? And how, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, really what I've taken a really long time to get to, I think, is basically if the main songwriters are still in the band, I still think it's that band. As soon as a major songwriter of the band leaves and goes to do their own thing, I think that's when you start to lose a little something.
Sure.
Right? Like Lane Staley, he didn't come up with a lot of the lyrics but he had influence on the lyrics and what was sung and just the way he sang it, right? Van Halen, I think, is a little different just because I think if David Lee Roth had put out another couple of albums before he left, then yes, I think they would fit in that category. But Van Halen put so much stuff out with Sammy Hagar that, you could say Van Halen was really the Van Halen brothers, Mike Anthony and Sammy Hagar. And they just happened to start out with David Lee Roth.
Mm-hmm. But you also have to remember, I think Van Halen is the perfect case to look at. You have David Lee Roth leaves, then you have Sammy Hagar, and they're able to write, I think, 1984 will always be my go-to Van Halen album. But then you have OU812, which is also one of my favorite Van Halen albums.
That's my favorite one.
And they have, so that you have, 5150, OU812, and then you have For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And then Gary Cherone comes in. And they basically, and that album is actually not bad. It's really not that bad. But they drop off the face of the planet. They bring David Lee Roth back, and all of a sudden they're Van Halen again. So I think, for me, like I said, Yes is a perfect example because I only knew Yes as the second incarnation. Alan White was the drummer, the second drummer they had. and the guitar player, I just blanked out on his name. He was filled in by Trevor Rabin. So for me, like, I only knew Yes as that, but they were producing great albums. They were producing great music. So it was fine for me to see them live.
Or like when Chicago replaced their lead singer.
Yeah, and so like, I think if you like what they're doing, if you hear, like, no one liked Van Halen 3. They thought it was terrible. It was panned by critics. It's actually a really great album, but it just was panned and no one liked it. Well, then I think in that case, you have to kind of reevaluate, do we keep going, regardless if the 2 founding members or 3 founding members or whoever was in there, if you should keep going. But if you're like Whitesnake, where you're round robbing, all the instrumentation, and yet you have David Coverdale and it still sounds good, then just keep moving. Richie Sambora left the band and they've gone country. I'm sorry, that just stop. Like, I have nothing against country, but I'm like, Bon Jovi's not country. So I think you have to kind of look at it from a case-by-case basis, or you do what Zeppelin did and their drummer dies, they just call it quits. We can't move on. And even though Jason Bonham is a great drummer, he is not John Bonham. And that live concert is great.
I think he's better than his dad, but I do.
Okay, well, that's another topic. So I think you just have to, like, for me, I love Lou Pinella, who took over for Steve Perry and Journey. But I don't want to see Lou Pinella. Like, if I'm going to go see Journey.
Yeah, I don't even think Neil Sean's in the band anymore.
I don't know. He's pretty old now. He may not be. I don't know. But like, if I'm going to go see Journey, I want to see Steve Perry, open arms, flat black hair, tight yellow and black T-shirt, belly hanging out. I mean, that's who I want to see.
Now, is Queen still Queen with Adam Lambert as the program?
No, well, no. They say Queen with Adam Lambert.
But no, but even though, like, and Adam Lambert is a great singer. No, absolutely not.
A little over the top, but
Freddie Mercury was over the top.
So would you say, so if you were to go to that concert, would you tell people you were going to see Queen?
No.
No, I don't know if I tell anybody I was going to that concert anyway.
But still,
I would say go see Brian May.
or we haven't mentioned this band yet. I don't think we did, but Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. It's not Guns N' Roses.
Is it Guns N' Roses still?
No, that's a really good example.
That's a great example.
That's a great, because right now the only original member is Axl. It's not Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses is Axl, Slash, and Duff. And you can throw Izzy in there if you want.
Well, it's Steve, but Steven can't play anymore, so. But see, I'll tell you this.
He can't play as well as he used to.
Well, no, he's medically can't play, if I remember correctly. Like, he had like some kind of seizure or something, if I remember correctly. But like, I saw them with Matt Sorum. I saw him with Gilby Clarke. I saw him with Duff. I saw him with Slash. I mean, I saw him with everybody, but the drummer and the bass player and the keyboard player were all Dizzy, the keyboard player. They were all backup guys. They were fill-ins, and I loved it. But it was because Duff was there. It was because
Slash was there,
and it's because Axl was there. So, like I said, I think, and also at that time when they recorded those albums, those guys were filling in for those guys. So it was their playing on Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. So I think it's a case by case basis, but
well, I watched an interview with shocker, Metallica, and they were talking about the loss of Cliff, and James has even said, one of the things that pisses him off the most about Cliff's death is that it's not the original 4, right? And it really is not Cliff wasn't the original bassist. Kirk wasn't the original lead guitar player, but like starting from the first album, it's not going to be the original 4, the 4 guys that made up Metallica, and Rob has now had the longest tenure as the bassist in Metallica, and And this goes to my point about major songwriters. You still have Lars and James in the band, so it's still Metallica, right? Because they're the major songwriters in the band, and Kirk has been in since the beginning. So they have 3 original, quote unquote, original members, but even just the loss of one person, and James was like, it's not the original 4. And the whole thing with Jason, when Jason left the band, his whole reason was, you don't take my ideas and use them to write songs in the band, so I get my musical outlet over here. And James's whole deal was, being in Metallica should be enough for you, right? And so even people in the music business have that kind of, original members is what makes the band. And I don't know, it would be very hard for me, especially a band that I love and a band that I've followed for a really long time. It would be really hard for me to get excited to go see them in concert if only one original member or no original members were in the band.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Man, we could talk about this like all night. I have a feeling this is one of those topics that we could just sit here and just keep bringing up band after band after band.
Yeah.
Talk and talk. But so, yeah. First listen. Let's jump right into it.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to play something that's kind of based off of what we've already been talking about. And we are going to talk about a band that replaced a member. And we're going to see what y'all think about this. So here is our first listen for the day.
Can you say jump cut?
It'll be there. Do either one of y'all recognize this?
I've heard this. This is Alice in Chains.
They've replaced 2 people.
Well, yeah.
So good. I'm gonna have a moment.
I say this every time, but man, listening to this stuff through headphones always sounds amazing.
I haven't listened to that in forever.
Okay, so would
I'm
y'all
gonna-
like to? Would you like
I'm
to
gonna-
tell everybody what that is?
That's
Where was
Alice in Chains.
All Secrets Known.
That was their first album that they released after Lane passed, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black gives way to
Black
blue.
gives way to blue.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw this out there, Joel. That's your best first listen yet.
But can it be considered a first listen since we've all heard that song before?
Yes, because some of our listeners may not have heard it before.
It's true.
So technically,
Yeah.
Technically, it's kind of a cheater, but I was thinking, because that's the subject we ended on. For me, like I said, the guitar player, Jerry Cantrell, went off and did his own thing. I'm not sure if the other members did. And he had a somewhat, successful career. But there's a chemistry you have with certain people, whether it's how they play the notes or how they interact or things of that nature. And I think that this band is just one of those rare occurrences where they were able to replace a vocalist that I think is one of the greatest, and yet still be able to retain that integrity for the band and things of that nature. So,
Not just a vocalist, but the bass player as well.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Mike Starr. I know them more with Mike Inez more than Mike Starr. That's just.
But
me.
they're arguably their two best albums. Their two most influential. Their very first two, Facelift and Dirt. Mike Starr recorded on those albums, even toured on those albums.
Yeah.
And then due to drug addiction and
Yeah.
so what I like about that the most is that literally takes me back to the 90s. And I mean, it's one of those things. It's like,
even though that came out in like 2015,
like
or
it
2012,
it
I mean.
literally took me back to the 90s where I'm like, oh yeah, Alice in Chains all day.
Yeah. Well, what was I saying before my mic cut out on me? Him leaving the band, Mike Starr, they actually found a bass player in Mike Inez who just filled that position. And for the longest time, I thought Mike Inez was the bass player on Dirt.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you're right. Replacing Lane, I don't think there is. And I think that's why when you listen to, there is a replacing a Lane Staley. I think that's why when you listen to their most recent album, starting with that one, Black Gives Way to Blue, I think that's why Jerry sings more. Like it's more of a co-lead singer, Jerry and the other guy.
Yeah.
And even before he passed away, I watched that. It was not a documentary, but a tribute to Alice in Chains. They received an award from the Experience Music Project in Seattle. Lane talked about, and even in that guitar,
The
that Gibson
guitar.
legend,
Yeah.
he talked about how Lane encouraged him to. You've got a great voice. These are your words. You should sing them.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Good first listen. Maybe
Alice in Chains.
maybe this will be
a good first listen in a long time.
Maybe I'll start a streak here, but this has been a fun episode. Let us know what you're thinking. Please follow us on YouTube. Please follow us on Spotify. I know Gurfer said a few episodes ago, if you're on Spotify, just get on over there, type a comment on Facebook, type a comment on our.
We're on
YouTube
Apple
channel.
Podcasts now too.
Apple Podcasts, let us know that you're where you're listening, just so we can kind of direct our attention that way. And we're just kind of curious on what y'all are doing. But also like, subscribe, comment. There's a lot of content that we're putting out as far as questions and things of that nature. But really, we love doing this. So subscribe so we can keep doing this and feed the algorithm. But Fisher, what do you have today as far as any channels to follow?
That's right. Feed that algorithm.
Feed it.
Pardon me. The first channel I have is a channel called Northern Ear. It's a reaction channel, and it's a guy, I believe he's in Ireland. I think that's his accent. I think it's an Irish accent. But he reacts to songs and to music that maybe he hasn't listened to in a long time or has never heard. His channel, Monday through Friday, he's reacting to metal and metal only. And then on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, that's when he reacts to like jazz or blues or hip hop, pop music. But Monday through Friday is mainly dedicated to metal and the harder side of music. And then for all you aspiring guitar players out there, I like to, even though I don't play guitar myself, I think it's cool to sometimes watch guitar lessons on YouTube to see how different people approach how to teach playing a song or how to teach techniques. And this, one of the guys that I actually like to just sit and watch is a channel called Guitar Lessons 365. And he does a real good job of like if he's going to take, when he takes a song to teach, he breaks it up into 3 or 4 sections and teaches a segment, starts it out. Here are the basic chords of this section, play it real slow and just keep practicing that section and building up until you get to the actual tempo of the song. So check that channel out, Guitar Lessons 365 and Northern Ear.
There it is. So to clear something up, you hear them say the word algorithm, okay? And what they're not telling you about algorithm is actually what Christian's stomach is called. He gets hungry and it needs to be fed. So, okay? So by feeding the algorithm, we keep him happy, okay? So do everything that Joel said and that Christian said and keep him fed, keep him happy. The algorithm is a real thing, okay? And when it's not being fed, you don't want to see it. But,
Nice.
But hey, for real, like all of you out there that are interacting with us on Facebook, it's fantastic. We've shouted this guy out a couple times, and we don't have this as official, but I would say that right now Mark Hudgens is probably our official #1 fan because he is commenting on everything.
He's overtaken Stick Crew.
So here's your deal. Your job as the listeners and as the viewers is to knock Mark Hudgens out of that #1 fan spot. Who's going to be the new #1? So let's knock him off his spot at #1 and let's see who's going to be the new. And let's turn it into a friendly competition. This is a music podcast. This is nothing else. So, hey, it's all fun and games. We have a good time. We hope you enjoyed tonight's topics. Until next week, keep living, keep loving, keep listening, and as always, keep rocking.
Too much metal, baby.
Yay.
And then this.
Dude, I think this is the most pre-production we've ever had. Hey, everybody, make sure your screens are lined up.
Got to get our screens aligned. Make sure there's no penises on the wall behind you.
Hey, as you can see, I've gone to a more neutral background.
So have I. I've gone neutral.
Wait, can y'all hear that?
You're not sharing your sound yet.
Okay, crap. Okay, let me try that again.
Take
so
two.
Excited. Take two.
And this is why your theme song is Nickelback.
Okay, let's try that again. Here we go, guys. Okay.